Now, what implications do you think this has now on the Karoo, being in the States and learning all of these things you did, speaking to all of the people you did? What do you see happening in the Karoo?
I think there's a very startling lack of information about the Karoo geology. I worked closely with the late Professor Gerrit van Tonder, who did very important research on trying to better understand the deep geology of the Karoo. He's cautioning that in some places there's an upward pressure that forces underground water to return to the surface, and that introduces great risks for any kind of drilling operation, because it means that the elements in the shale layer, which include arsenic, mercury, those kinds of heavy metals, includes high levels of salts, and also includes radioactive elements, there's a greater opportunity for that to reach the surface. Right. So that's his body of science. There's just a major lack of information into the geology of the Karoo. But outside of that, there still hasn't been any real public consultation from government with the people in the Karoo. The people of the Karoo are still largely in the dark about this. And if this is happening on their land, the very least, that's the very least we can do, is at least go and consult people and answer the questions that they may have, or share the information that you have. So I think there's just a real lack of information, a lack of consultation, and for me, someone from the Karoo, that's a lack of respect for the people in the Karoo. So far, it feels like the socioeconomic status of the people in the Karoo, or the fact that they mean less politically, has sidelined them from the debate that's happened in Cape Town and Johannesburg, and that's unacceptable. I mean, we're all citizens in a democracy. We should all be participating in decisions like these, particularly if they're happening where these people live. And that's because the mineral rights do not belong to the people of South Africa. They're in the hands of the government. And that has excluded us from any of the discussions. In the US, in most states, landowners own the mineral rights, and so you'll always have someone coming to your door, knocking your door and saying, here's a piece of paper, this is what's happening in your area, would you be for this or against this, are we allowed to drill on your land? That's not the case in South Africa, and so it more and more seemed to have been a discussion that's excluded the public at large, and particularly those in the Karoo.
Do you think the South African government has, I don't want to say concealed facts, but has kept information from the public because of the same reasons the U.S. government has?
Oh, I think it's easy. I think it's easy as filmmakers probably expected to make radical statements about governments, being anti-government and that kind of thing. I think it's too early to really tell if that's what's happening with the South African government. I am just concerned that they don't have all the facts with them. The crazy thing about the fracking debate is that because it's been developed in the US, that's the only country that's really carrying it out. You actually have to go there and spend 5 months door to door collecting data, collecting information. You can't really sit in South Africa and Google this, as I found later on. And my concern is whether or not that kind of information is informing those in government, if they have that kind of experience and actual on the ground evidence of what's happening. So to answer, I'm not sure what the motive. It's also hard for the South African government. There's a real reality, and anything that's going to offer us jobs at this stage, we'll probably jump on, and that makes these decisions, the pressure on these decisions, really hard. I would then, for more reasons, then call for more time to make sure that we're making the right decision, and not feel the political pressure for your party to look like it's solving any of the problems, because the jobs are likely to be short term for the locals in the Karoo, and it's they're very high qualifying. The jobs are massive qualifications and experience, which South Africa doesn't have. So those are likely to be foreign workers. That's what you can see in the States. I mean, they're usually workers out of Texas and Oklahoma that are going around and filling these jobs in states like Pennsylvania and West Virginia. So the locals are really left with very low opportunity for real job creation. But these are all the discussions I think you need to encourage and have an open discussion about it, but also step back and place fracking into the broader global, national and global context of a world that is at crossroads. We're standing between the economy and the environment, and wondering which one we can push further off the chart in terms of having to stimulate the economies post 2008, or trying to retain some sort of natural ecosystem and leave it to be. And I think that fracking has come around at a very important time in the world's history, where we actually have to ask ourselves if we're going to continue on the fossil fuel era and scraping the last dregs of the fossil fuel barrel, or really start having those very, very important important conversations around having to do things better and having to admit that we need to stop putting so much carbon and methane, of which fracking is a large contributor, into the atmosphere. So as you can tell, I mean, the film really does grow into quite a big debate, and we try and place the Karoo in South Africa into this really important international discussion that's happening right now.